These are the albums I made. They are pocket albums. I made four of them because they're going to be presents for my daughter's friends. They had a slumber party a while ago, and we made an album for each one about that special event. I'm gonna show you the process of how I made the four of them. I started my project by collecting all the things I thought I was going to use, even though I didn't end up using everything. I made a template out of some cardstock, the same size as the pictures, so I could use that to measure around and see what my pockets would be like. For my plastic pockets, I used the Becky Higgins Project Live, the design A. So now I have to cut the 12 by 12 pages into smaller pieces. Here you can see that I cut the long strips. Now I'm going to cut them in half to end up with 4 by 6 pockets. And I also get 2 of those 3 by 4 pockets pages. Then I made sure I had enough pockets for each album, so I divided them into 4 groups. I started planning how my album will be like, so organizing the cover, the memorabilia, counting if I had enough space for all the pictures and a few areas for journaling. And that album I'm going to use as a guide to make the other 3. For the covers, I wanted to use a smooshing technique. I love this technique and my daughter also loved it, so it was perfect. I just got a piece of plastic, smooshed the ink, and then added some spray water and then smooshed the plastic on top of the paper to get that neat effect. I used the Distress Ink Evergreen Bow. Is this kind of blue greenish color that you can see here. Those covers I had done a little bit of foiling. The results are not that great because I did it with a laminating machine, but I was just testing to see how it works with my own laminating machine. And I need more ink to complete the 4 pages. I'm trying to make them as similar as I can. Of course, with the smooshing technique, you can't get the same results, but I'm just controlling the areas where I add the ink. After adding my first color, I had to dry with my heat tool to be able to add my second color so they wouldn't mix that much and make a muddy color. I also used some paper towel to blot off some of the puddles of ink and water on the paper to make it really dry. Then I'm ready for my second color. I used festive berries for my second color. I wanted some contrast there, and I proceeded the same way. Get some ink on that plastic, spread it with some water, and then smush the plastic on the paper on the areas I wanted to add the color. What I love the most about this technique is that you don't get the same results all the time, but there's a little bit of control on the colors where you put them, so because you can see through the plastic where the color is traveling. So much fun doing it, and the results are amazing. This watercolor kind of look. I also have another piece that I'm going to do the same technique of the smooshing with the same colors, and it's a very special part of the album because I asked my daughter to write her friends' names on a piece of paper and also foil it. So it's going to be very special because it's their names written by her with the gorgeous look that the foil does. And to finish it off, I just got a paintbrush and painted that hard red, to make it extra special and cute. Then it was time to get the fuse out. The fuse mat has a special pocket to keep the tool inside so you don't get burnt. And the grid mat helps with aligning everything perfectly. I decided to start fusing some of the memorabilia first to have special places for the things that I wanted to include in this album. I'm including the subway tickets that we used that night and the business card of the restaurant where we went to. I decided to add some sequins inside that pocket because it's cute to have these little things inside those areas. Then I fuse it carefully using the blue lines on my mat and the ruler. The fuse tool has to be really hot in order to work properly. I did not fast forward this part so you could see in real time how fast I moved the fuse tool. And of course I had to repeat the process 4 times. The subway ticket fit perfectly inside those 3x4 pockets, so I had only to fuse the top part. For the business card I need a little bit more room, so I took the 4x6 piece. So I had to fuse the horizontal line and the vertical line. I did the vertical line first and then fused the horizontal line. Using the guide on the mat really helps making straight lines and having straight edges. You can see how carefully I'm trying to align everything, so I end up having perfect pockets. Since I'm not using pre-made pages for this size of album, I end up having some of the pages with no border for the area where I punch the holes where I'm going to put my album together. So what I did is I took one that did have that area and measure it so I could create that strip on the side. So later on I have my area to punch the holes to put my album together. This will make some pages smaller than others, a little bit shorter, but I don't mind that. I think it adds some interest to the album, having different sizes. So if you do mind that, then you won't be able to use all the pages that you cut from the 12x12 pages. I also fused the border. I think it gives a little bit of a strength to the page. Then I organized the pictures in the order I wanted to have them in each album and put them in the pockets just to have an idea of what I was going to do. I first created one album and then copied from that one to make the other 3. I had so many papers and so many pictures around that I wanted to have everything organized. Then I fused some other pockets for some pictures and pattern paper and repeated that for each album. This is a page that I think is very special because I wanted to use some of that transparency that the pockets have. So I fused 2 small pockets, like long pockets on the side of one picture, and I'm going to include some fun things inside there, but leaving it mostly open so you could see through those areas. So I added some sequins to one side and sealed that pocket, and more sequins to the other side, and the word thanks that I had die cut previously. And because that particular picture is referring to some presents that my daughter got, so the word was perfect for that. That one is a die from My Favorite Things, and I think it looked gorgeous there with the white and the white sequins. Then it was time to find the pattern paper that I was gonna use. I got this Shimel's paper pad. It's called True Stories, and I used some of those papers, and I also used some from another paper pad, this one called On the Bright Side, and I don't know, I got this one on a sale somewhere, and the colors seem to match this other collection from Shimel. So I got my paper trimmer and started cutting the paper and measuring to make sure that I had enough for all the pockets in my 4 albums. Sometimes I had to make sure that the paper will fit inside those pockets. Since I made them myself, they are not all the standard size. So I made sure that they fit properly. For one of the pockets I wanted to add a special touch, so I used this C6 die of a butterfly on this gold paper that I got from this paper pad. It was a gift from someone, and I die cut 4 of the butterflies. I colored them on the back with a distress marker so they wouldn't be white. I just put some blue and green. I didn't bother coloring perfectly. I just didn't want to have the white back there, and included that on the top pocket of the subway ticket, and then fuse the top so the butterfly won't fly away from the album. Here I'm making the other pages with the die cuts of the word thanks. Here's the die I used from my favorite things, and I made them the same way. Sometimes I had to trim a little bit some pictures because they were kind of too tall for the page. So I just trimmed a hair on the top and a hair on the bottom. And I added a little bit of washi tape here and there. It's a washi tape from Amy Tangerine that I had left over from another project. And then on the back of the album I added that special foil page with the names of the girls, and I matte that with a dark blue color and added the panel, then some washi tape on the borders, and tried to make it colorful and happy for the girls. I also used some washi tape from that same Amy Tangerine collection to decorate the cover, adding some banners on the top right corner. And I had to add the date. I stamped it with this smash stamp with the, I think it says I love these, and then the date. I needed some help to punch the holes in these albums, so I made a template out of cardstock and I measured to mark where the holes were going to be, and that way I could punch in each album, having knowing that I was going to do it on the right place. I divided each album in half so I could punch through half of the pages and then the other half, because this is plastic and it doesn't stay in place, even though I use some paper clips to keep them in place. I used some baker's twine to tie my albums. I had tried with metal rings and I didn't like it that much, plus I didn't have enough for the 4 albums, so I was thinking what to do, and I think this idea of tying it with the baker's twine gives it a nice touch with the strings hanging on the side. Then I realized I didn't like having the plastic showing the whole way on the side, so I cut out some cardstock to put inside those spaces there, so it would look nicer with the pattern paper. You can already see here that it's going to look better this way, having this bit of pattern here on the side. I realized that all of my front pages had a gap, so I decided to add a strip of pattern paper to complete that space. I took out some of those old punches that I have and punch out many hearts in different shapes to add to the cover and some other pages around the album. Which will give the album a little bit of unity, having the same pattern and the same kind of shape all over. I also added some sequins on the front of the album. At this point, I started thinking what other special things I could add to it to make it more special, because it was almost done. Of course, I needed to add some shimmer to the hearts on the front cover with a Wink of Stella clear brush pen. I also die cut some words to add inside the album. This one says happy from Paper Smooches, and then this one is Señor Piruleta. It says para siempre, forever. I glued them down on some of the pockets that are 3x4 that I didn't put any picture. These were, just to put some embellishment or maybe for some journaling. So here they are. I added them just like that. So here's the finished album. I left it pretty simple because I'm doing 4 of them, and I wanted my daughter to add some journaling herself. So you can see that on the pages there's lots of room for journaling, and if the pattern paper is too busy, we can just add a white piece of cardstock smaller than the pattern paper and make it like a frame. So over there she can write something, and here you can see the transparency with the sequins there. And then these pages that I added some messages. She can move them around if she wants to. She can write there or just leave it like that. I hope you like it and that you get some inspiration out of this video. and I'm gonna post some still shots of the album in my blog to be able to see some of the details that are not captured in the video. Thanks for watching!